Hello, fourth grade. I am here today to read you pages 211 through 220 in Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone by J.K. Rowling. No, I'm alone, but I'm different. I look older and I'm head boy. What? I'm wearing that badge like Bill used to, and I'm holding the house cup and the Quidditch cup. I'm Quidditch captain too. Ron tore his eyes away from the splendid sight and looked excitedly at Harry. You think this mirror shows the future? How can it? All my family are dead. Let me have another look. You had it to yourself all last night. Give me a bit more time. You're only holding the Quidditch cup. That's interesting about you. I want to see my parents. Don't push me. A sudden noise outside in the corridor put an end to their discussion. They hadn't realized how loudly they'd been talking. Quick! Ron threw the cloak back over them, and the luminous eyes of Mrs. Norris came round the door. Ron and Harry stood quite still, both thinking the same thing. Cloak work on cats? After what seemed like an age, she turned and laughed. This isn't safe. She must have gone for Filch. I bet she heard us. Come on. And Ron pulled Harry out of the room. The snow still hadn't melted the next morning. Want to play chess, Harry? Said Ron. No. Why don't we go down and visit Hagrid? No, you go. I know what you're thinking about, Harry, that mirror. Don't go back tonight. Why not? I don't know. I just got a bad feeling about it. And anyways, you have too many close shaves already. Filch, Snape, and Mrs. Norris are wandering around. So what if they can't see you? What if they walk into you? What if you knock something over? You sound like Hermione. I'm serious, Harry. Don't go. But Harry had one thought in his mind, which was to go get back in front of that mirror, and Ron wasn't going to stop him. That third night, he found his way more quickly than before. He was walking so fast that he knew he was making more noise than was wise, but he didn't want to meet anyone. And there were his mother and father smiling at him again, and one of his grandfathers nodding happily. Harry sank down to sit at the floor in front of the mirror. There was nothing to stop him from staying here all night with his family. Nothing at all. Except, so, back at it again, Harry. Harry felt as though his insides had turned to ice. He looked behind him. Sitting on one of the desks by the wall was none other than Albus Dumbledore. Harry must have walked straight past him, so desperate to get to the mirror that he hadn't noticed him. I didn't see you, sir. Strange how nearsighted being invisible can make you, said Dumbledore, and Harry was relieved to see that he was smiling. So, said Dumbledore, you, like hundreds before you, have discovered the delights of the mirror of Erise. I didn't know what it was called, sir, but I expect you've realized by now what it does. It shows me my family, and it shows you and your friend Ron himself as head boy. How did you know? I don't need a cloak to become invisible, said Dumbledore gently. Now, can you think of what the mirror of Erise shows us all? Harry shook his head. Let me explain. The happiest man on earth would be able to use the mirror of Erise like a normal mirror. That is, he would look into it and see himself exactly as he is. Does that help? Harry thought. Then he said slowly, It shows us what we want, whatever we want. Yes and no, said Dumbledore quietly. It shows us nothing more or less than the deepest, most desperate desires of our hearts. You, who have never known your family, see them standing around you. Ron Weasley, who has always been overshadowed by his brothers, sees himself standing alone, the best of all of them. However, this mirror will give us neither knowledge or truth. Men have wasted away before it, and entranced by what they have seen, or been driven mad, not knowing if what it shows is real or even possible. The mirror will be moved to a new home tomorrow, Harry, and I ask that you do not go looking for it again. If you ever do run across it, you will now be prepared. It does not do well to dwell on the dreams and forget to live. Remember that. Now, why don't you put that admirable cloak back on and get off to bed? Harry stood up. Sir, Professor Dumbledore, can I ask you something? Obviously, you've just done so, Dumbledore smiled. You may ask me one more thing, however. What do you see when you look in the mirror? I see myself holding a pair of thick woolen socks. Harry stared. One can never have enough socks, said Dumbledore. Another Christmas has come and gone, and I didn't get a single pair. People insist on giving me books. It was only when he was back in bed that it struck Harry that Dumbledore might not have been quite truthful. But then a thought as he shoved Scabbers off his pillow, it had been quite a personal question. Chapter 13, Nicholas Flamel. Dumbledore had convinced Harry not to go looking for the Mirror of Erised again, and for the rest of the Christmas holidays the invisibility cloak stayed folded at the bottom of his trunk. Harry wished he could forget what he had seen in the mirror as easily, but he couldn't. He started having nightmares. Over and over again he dreamed about his parents disappearing in a flash of green light, while a high voice cackled with laughter. You see, Dumbledore was right. That mirror could drive you mad, said Ron when Harry told him about these dreams. Hermione, who came back the day before term started, took a different view of things. She was torn between the horror of the idea of Harry being out of bed, excuse me, roaming the school 3 nights in a row, and disappointed that he hadn't at least found out who Nicholas Flamel was. They had almost given up hope of ever finding Flamel in a library book, even though Harry was still sure he had read it somewhere. Once term had started, they were back at skimming through books for 10 minutes during their breaks. Harry had even less time than the other two because Quidditch practice had started again. Wood was working the team harder than ever. Even the endless rain that had replaced the snow wouldn't dampen his spirits. The Weasleys complained that Wood was becoming a fanatic, but Harry was on Wood's side. If they won their next match against Hufflepuff, they would overtake Slytherin in the house championship for the first time in 7 years. Quite apart from wanting to win, Harry found that he had fewer nightmares when he was tired out after training. Then, during one particularly wet and muddy practice session, Wood gave the team a bit of bad news. He'd just gotten very angry with the Weasleys, who kept dive-bombing each other and pretending to fall off their brooms. Will you stop messing around? He yelled. That's exactly the sort of thing that'll lose us the match. Snape's refereeing this time, and he'll be looking for any excuse to knock points off for Gryffindor. George Weasley really did fall off his broom at these words. Snape's refereeing, he sputtered. When has he ever refereed a Quidditch match? He's not going to be fair if we overtake Slytherin. The rest of the team landed next to George to complain too. It's not my fault, said Wood. We've just got to make sure we play a clean game so Snape hasn't got an excuse to pick on us. Which was all very, very well, thought Harry, but he was another reason for not wanting Snape to hear him was playing Quidditch. The rest of the team hung back to talk to one another as usual at the end of the practice, but Harry headed straight back for Gryffindor common room, where he found Ron and Hermione playing chess. Chess was the only thing Hermione ever lost at, something Harry and Ron thought was very good for her. Don't talk to me for a moment, said Ron when Harry sat down next to him. I need to He caught sight of Harry's face. What's the matter with you? You look terrible. Speaking quietly so that no one else would hear, Harry told the others about Snape's sudden, sinister desire to be a Quidditch referee. Don't play, said Hermione at once. Say you're ill, said Ron. Pretend to break your leg, Hermione suggested. Really break your leg, said Ron. I can't, said Harry. There isn't a reserve seeker. If I back out, Gryffindor can't play at all. At the moment, Neville toppled into the common room. How he had managed to climb through that portrait hole is anyone's guess, because his legs had been stuck together with what they recognized at once was a leg locker curse. He must have had to bunny hop all the way up the Gryffindor tower. Everyone fell over laughing except Hermione, who leapt up from her performance to the counter curse. Neville's legs sprang apart, and he got to his feet, trembling. What happened? Said Hermione. Malfoy, said Neville shakily. I met him outside the library. He had been looking for someone to practice on. Go to Professor McGonagall. Report him. Neville shook his head. I don't want any more trouble, he mumbled. You've got to stand up to him, Neville, said Ron. He's used to walking all over people, and that's no reason to lie down in front of him and make it easier. There's no need to tell me I'm not brave enough to be a Gryffindor. Malfoy's already done that, Neville choked out. Harry felt in the pocket of his robes and pulled out a chocolate frog, the very last one from his box Hermione had given him for Christmas. He gave it to Neville, who looked as though he might cry. You're worth 12 of Malfoy, Harry said. That sorting hat chose you for Gryffindor, didn't it? And where's Malfoy? In stinkin' Slytherin. Neville's lips twitched in a weak smile as he unwrapped the frog. Thanks, Harry. I think I'll go to bed. You want the card? You collect them, don't you? As Neville walked away, Harry looked at the famous wizard card. Dumbledore again, he said. He was the first one he gasped. He stared at the back of the card, then he looked up at Ron and Hermione. I found him, he whispered. I found Flamel. I told you I'd read it somewhere. I read it on the train coming here. Listen to this. Dumbledore is particularly famous for his defeat of the Dark Wizard Grindelwald in 1945. for the discovery of the 12 uses of dragon's blood and his work on the alchemy with his partner, Nicholas Flamel. Hermione jumped to her feet. She hadn't looked so excited since they'd gotten back to the marks for their very first piece of homework. "Stay there," she said, and sprinted up the stairs to the girls' dormitories. Harry and Ron barely had time to exchange mystified looks before she was dashing back, an enormous old book in her arms. "I never thought to look in here," she whispered. "I got it out of the library weeks ago for a bit of light reading." "Light reading?" said Ron. Hermione told him to be quiet until she looked something up, and started flicking frantically through the pages. At last she found what she was looking for. "I knew it! I knew it!" "Are we allowed to speak yet?" said Ron grumpily. "Nicholas Flamel," she whispered, "is the only known maker of the Sorcerer's Stone." They didn't have quite the effect she'd expected. "The what?" "Oh, honestly, don't you two read? Look, read that, there." She pushed the book toward them, and Harry and Ron read. "The ancient study of alchemy is concerned with making the Sorcerer's Stone, a legendary substance with an astonishing power. The stone will transform any metal into pure gold. It also produces the elixir of life, which will make the drinker immortal. There have been many reports of the Sorcerer's Stone over the centuries, but the stone currently in existence belongs to Mr. Nicholas Flamel, the noted alchemist and opera lover. Mr. Flamel, who celebrated his 665th birthday last year, enjoys a quiet life in Devon with his wife, Perenelle." "See," said Hermione. When Harry and Ron had finished, "the dog must have been guarding Flamel's Sorcerer's Stone. I bet he asked Dumbledore to keep it safe for him because they're friends and he knew someone was after it. That's why he wanted the stone moved out of Gringotts." "A stone that makes gold and stops you from ever dying," said Harry. "No wonder Snape's after it. Anyone would want it. And no wonder he couldn't find it. Flamel in the study of recent development in wizardry," said Ron. "He's not exactly recent if he's 665, is he?" The next morning, in Defense Against Dark Arts, while copying down different ways of treating werewolf bites, Harry and Ron were still discussing what they do with the Sorcerer's Stone if they had one. It wasn't until Ron said he'd buy his own Quidditch team that Harry remembered about Snape and the coming match. That is all for today, fourth grade. Have a great day.